Monday, October the 13th, 2025, is a day everyone who is old enough to remember will always remember as a day of great joy. It is hard to not have an extraordinary feeling of joy when you see hostages who have been kept in the most dire of conditions following the worst of massacres and atrocities finally set free after 2 years and a handful of days. It is a great day. Now, great days in the course of a life. If you get your 70 or 40, or if you're like my grandfather, 50+ years, you're going to have a lot of great days and you're going to have a lot of terrible days. And the great days and the terrible days are going to divide into public great days and public terrible days and private great days and private terrible days. Now, a private great day is the day you get married, if you got married. A private great day is the birth of your child, if you've had children. A private great day is when one of those children grows up and marries a spouse of whom you approve. Another great day is any day a grandchild is born. There are lots of great days if you are a blessed person in the course of your life. There are many great days in your spiritual life. If you're like I am, a Roman Catholic, when you receive your first Holy Communion, when you're baptized, obviously, but you don't remember that. Your first confession, confirmation. There are many great days in a person's private religious journey. Public days, though, there aren't many great days. There are a lot of good days, don't get me wrong. It was a very good day when Ronald Reagan won the presidency in November of 1980. It was another good day when he won re-election in 1984. It was a very good day when H.W. Bush won his election in 88, when W won in 2000 and in 2004, and yes, when President Trump won in 2016 and 2024. Those were very good public days. But great public days, great ones, I can only think of 3. Now, I think of 2 awful public days. 9/11, that's the worst day of my life, publicly. I don't think anyone's going to try and bid for second place on that. Although if you're an Israeli, you might say 10/7. But those are the 2 worst days of my adult life that I can remember. And there have been 3 great days. The first great day was the freeing of our hostages from Iran, which happened to coincide not with the election of Ronald Reagan, but with his inauguration. And if you had gone through those years of ineptitude, impotence, the collapse of any illusion of having control over the world because you're America, those were bleak years when the Ayatollah Khomeini simply toyed with the West. And it was a great day. Time magazine called it a new beginning, and they put Ronald Reagan on the cover, and the hostages came home on the same day. That was a great day. It's second on my list. The greatest of days was the day that the Berlin Wall fell. And that actually took place over a number of days, but there is a specific day when the wall's gates blew open and people began to dance on top of it and stream through it. And you knew right then that communism in Europe and eventually in the Soviet Union would dissolve. You knew that. It was a day of great joy, unlike any other day of great joy that I've experienced. It's number 1 because it represented freedom for hundreds of millions of people, both who were already alive and who were being liberated, and their children, and an opportunity for those countries, some of which have taken it, like Poland and the Czech Republic, Hungary, Romania, Germany reunified. They've become free. They're not thriving in many places, but they are free and they can choose at any time they want to thrive. Russia has fallen, unfortunately, back into the clutches of a dictator. It isn't as bad as the Stasi were for the average Muscovite or Russian. It's not like being an East German under the boot of the Stasi, but it's pretty bad. People fall out of windows by accident. People are dying by the tens of thousands on the front in a war that Putin started because of American weakness. But the fall of the Berlin Wall was a great day. And it was a great day as well when our hostages came home. But if I put the fall of the Berlin Wall as number one, I'm going to put the release of our hostages as number three, and I'm going to put today in as number two. I woke up repeatedly during the night because I'd gone to sleep last night knowing what was supposed to happen, knowing that Air Force One was heading to Tel Aviv, knowing that President Trump was going to address the Knesset, fairly confident that the people would get out. And I'll play you some of President Trump's speech after the break and throughout the program today. It was a great speech at the Knesset. But I wasn't sure. So I woke up at about 3 o'clock in the morning and checked and saw that a half dozen of the hostages had been released. I said, well, said a prayer of thanksgiving, went back to bed, praying that the other 14 and the remains of the 28 would come. And then I woke up and I saw that, in fact, the other 14 had just, the last of the other 14, had just been delivered into the hands of the Israeli Defense Forces. And then I knew that it was over. The suffering of the hostages were over. Now, there are a lot of hostages around the world. Jimmy Lai is still in prison in Hong Kong. In fact, Jim Garrity alerted me to the taking of another prisoner today by the Chinese Communist Party, and I'm going to mention their name. It will take me a second to look it up, but Jim put it in there in his morning newsletter. It's Ezra Jim Mingri. He's a pastor that the Chinese Communist Party have seized today or yesterday. So they're hostages the world over. I only pray that they aren't held in the utterly barbaric conditions of the Israelis by the Hamas terrorists. And I have a little coda, which is, I don't know what Hamas is up to right now. They've only returned the remains of 2 or 4, depends on what news account you read, of the 28 hostages who died in captivity. And that's a lot less than they were supposed to do. President Trump has already been to Egypt, already addressed the peace conference, already on his way home. I hope he has an understanding with Prime Minister Netanyahu and the rest of the people around the world about what happens if those remains are not delivered. The ceasefire is done, and the IDF will resume the war. Hamas has made something of a show of strength. It's really hard to tell. I counted 20 guys in uniforms in 3 cars. I saw a couple of clips of alleged Hamas terrorists killing innocent Gazans. I don't know what's going on in the Strip, but I know that there's a deal, and the deal has to be lived up to, or there is no deal. But as it stands right now, a little bit after 3 o'clock on October the 13th, 2025, it's a joyful day. It's a day right up there that we will not forget. A great day of triumph for President Trump and for Prime Minister Netanyahu and those that worked with him, Special Envoy Witkoff, Jared Kushner, Ron Dermer, thousands of people in the IDF, hundreds of Americans who have helped out. It's just a great day. Enjoy it, remember it. There aren't many of them in the course of a life. Many of you know who have been listening to the show for a long time that I spend a lot of my summer in Maine. It's where I would move to if I could move from Virginia and get out of the Beltway, because it's a wonderful place and it needs a new governor. And that's probably going to be Jonathan Bush. And I invited him to join me today. Jonathan, welcome to the Hugh Hewitt Show. It's good to see you again.
Great opening, Hugh.
It is. It
Two
is.
pieces of good news in the opening.
I want you to absolutely change the state so I can go and live there. Why are you running to governor? You've been very successful in business. You don't have to do anything. Why do you want to work on Maine?
I spoke to the rest of Maine, and we all agree we'd like to have you. We'll get rid of some death tax for you, and you'll come right up. Thanks very much for your interest. I'm running for Maine for just as you've set it up beautifully, Hugh. We have an economic growth emergency here. We have, obviously, there's always a crust of well-heeled folks that do well with lots of padding in their lives. But for the average Mainer, it's not a good story. This is a state that is kind of on the top of every list you don't want to be on, and the bottom of every list you want to be at the top of. I mean, thank God for Alaska so that we can be only 49th in infrastructure, 46th in our business climate. I mean, we're really struggling, and our leadership here is kind of headlong into the teachable moment of socialism that even, places like San Francisco and New York are in, where they are, building laws that prevent the police from arresting people and fining landlords who can't find tenants because they've created such a horrible environment. We just need, in Maine, we love our pie, and this is a state that needs to stop deciding how to equitably divide our shrinking pie and start to make more pie. And everyone in Maine
tell people a little bit about
people. Yeah.
Tell people about Athena Health, because when I met you this summer, and I've known your cousin forever, I didn't know that you had begun Athena Health, which it's probably not the largest private employer in Maine, but it's going to be close. And I want to get the utilities out of there. Okay, yeah. Top 5. So tell people what you did with Athena.
So I mean, Athena Health is, of course, the virtual back office that most doctors in the country use that are independent. 20% of all visits to the doctor, whether you know it or not, are happening on AthenaNet. And back in 2007, Athena was going well, and I needed to be able to scale. And I walked into an abandoned credit card processing center in Belfast, Maine, up in the mid-coast, pretty rural area of Maine, and bought the place. Started calling on the people that used to process credit cards, and built up the nation's healthcare back office. There are 1,000 careers in mid-coast Maine that are the back room to 20% of doctors' office visits in the country. And that is that playbook about finding a thing that Maine is comparatively advantaged to do, setting it up, and then evangelizing nationally to build it is what Maine needs in every one of these towns. There's town after town that looks so forlorn today, that was so perky and proud at its economic prime. We just need to orient ourselves towards more economic prime.
What people don't understand, it's a giant state, and I have trouble conveying this to people from Ohio. You can fit Ohio inside of Maine. You can fit all of New England inside of Maine, but it's not developed. And I keep driving with a developer lawyer's eyes past all these hundreds of thousands of square miles of land that could be repurposed into houses and businesses. Why is that not happening up here? It happened in Massachusetts. It's not the weather.
No, I mean, we've got more coastline in Maine than in all of California combined. We've got all the West Coast combined. We've got enormous natural resources, 6 million acres of forest land, recircled forest land, an incredibly resilient workforce that's used to changes in seasons and changes in the economy. This is strictly a leadership problem. This is strictly kind of a groupthink Democrat, keep it quaint attitude that has metastasized into the bloodstream here and must be chased out. And what's interesting, Hugh, is you get a lot of folks in Southern Maine who used to be Democrats or are Democrats but are unenrolled today, who look over and say, "Geez, Johnny, I think you're right. They're not as far away from coming our way as people think, because they've had such a stunning experience of decrepitude in the face of enormous potential opportunity."
So let's get some practical things down. What is your website if people want to help you become governor of Maine?
www.jonathanbush.org. Better than your New Jersey guy you had on the other day. So we're moving.
I know that was hard. Yeah. www.jonathanbush.org. All right. Your W's cousin. Is that going to be a good thing or a bad thing in Maine? There are some people, I still love the Bushes and I always have, but some people don't. Is that going to be a good thing or a bad thing in Maine?
Well, everything like that. What did they say in politics? You're never as smart or as dumb as people say you are. You're never as good or as bad. Bush is a headwind sometimes and a tailwind sometimes. When I first talked to George about, hey, I'm thinking about running, this was over a year ago, he said, man, I don't know. I couldn't run for dog catcher in Texas. But in Maine, we polled it, and the Bush family's got a lot of support. 70% of Republican and independent Mainers favorably or strongly favorably view the Bush family. I think the question is, will Mainers, when they meet me, find me to be my own guy or a little robot caught in some sort of lineage machine? I
can definitely tell them you're unlike any other Bush I've ever met. And I met your cousin, your uncle, and a bunch of your other cousins as well. And you're different. Let me ask you about the fact while you have spent like about half of the state every summer of your life in Maine, you've left a lot of those winters. Are you going to get carpetbagger tag, even though it doesn't work when you spent every summer of your life in a state?
Well, I've actually thought, of course, I've thought about that, thinking about likelihood of success, wanting to make sure I'm going to win. And I thought about a bumper sticker, Bush, carpetbagging since 1969 as an angle. Or, my ass has been everywhere, but my soul's in Maine. I think the reality of the story is I couldn't have done, and this is the story of every Maine family, I couldn't have done my career in Maine until COVID and Zoom. Today, I can. I want to make that story be true for every Mainer. I want people to not have, we call it the Maine dream, not just the American dream, which is you get the American dream, but you can do it in Maine. That's the story of my campaign. Is there are guys like me.
Quick exit question, Jonathan. Yeah. What are you going to do the income tax, which is 8.5%? It's ridiculous.
First thing I'm going to do is cut it by $1 billion. First thing we got to do is cut that tax by $1 billion. We need a shot across the bow, an alert that we're taking this seriously. Of course, the next thing will have to be to audit Augusta to fit into that envelope, but there's enormous bloat. Enormous opportunities for automation and focus. Every time I look, it blows my mind. So the first thing has to be $1 billion tax cut, get us back to the other states. Then we'll clean up our act, and then we'll start to grow, and it'll be Katie bar the door, because here comes me.
And that's where I'm retiring if you win. JonathanBush.org. I don't know if that's going to help you or hurt you with my neighbors. JonathanBush.org. Go there, help him out. He'll be back a lot, because I really do love the state of Maine. President Trump gave a great speech at the Knesset today when he was in Israel. I want to go and play you some of the excerpts of that. Let's begin with cut number, I got lots of cuts here. Cut number 26.
It's a great honor. Nice place. Very nice place. Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, esteemed members of the Knesset and cherished citizens of Israel, we gather on a day of profound joy, of soaring hope, of renewed faith, and above all, a day to give our deepest thanks to the Almighty God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. After 2 harrowing years in darkness and captivity, 20 courageous hostages are returning to the glorious embrace of their families, and it is glorious. 28 more precious loved ones are coming home at last to rest in this sacred soil for all of time. And after so many years of unceasing war and endless danger, today the skies are calm, the guns are silent, the sirens are still, and the sun rises on a holy land that is finally at peace, a land and a region that will live, God willing, in peace for all eternity.
It was a marvelous speech. Let's go to cut number 27.
This is not only the end of a war, this is the end of an age of terror and death and the beginning of the age of faith and hope and of God. It's the start of a grand concord and lasting harmony for Israel and all the nations of what will soon be a truly magnificent region. I believe that so strongly. This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East.
And then cut number 28.
I want to express my gratitude to a man of exceptional courage and patriotism, whose partnership did so much to make this momentous day possible. You know who I'm talking about. There's only one. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Please stand up.
It really is the President and the Prime Minister show. One more cut from this speech, cut number 29.
It's an incredible triumph for Israel and the world to have all of these nations working together as partners in peace. And it's pretty unusual for you to see that, but it happened in this case. This was a very unusual point in time, a brilliant point in time. Generations from now, this will be remembered as the moment that everything began to change, and change very much for the better.
I think he's right, by the way. I think it is the moment at which everything is going to seem to have changed. Hamas may try and screw it up. It won't succeed. You know what else has to change? This is our sponsor, the American Exploration and Production Council, axpc.org. We have to change the way we get oil and natural gas out of the ground in the United States and how we get it across the United States. We need permit reform. We have to have energy. Energy is freedom. Israel's got natural gas now. They've got to get it out of the ocean. We've got natural gas, oil, and coal that we've got to get out of the ground and do so in a safe way. Don't do it in any way that hurts the environment. Do it in a way that is efficient and effective with permit reform. Find out why Americans are paying a price for ridiculous bureaucracy that they do not need, that permitting can be made much more quick, much more effective, much more energy productive, and much more reliable for the environment. axpc.org. I also have to take my relief factor because I have the mobility of my grandfather's Ottoman, which didn't have wheels. I don't have any mobility because this is not true. I caught it from my wife. Her hamstring went out, and then my hamstring went out. I think it's because we both went too far, but I've got my relief factor, and I'm doubling down every day. 4 pills and a little bit of Trader Joe's water. I carry in curcumin, resveratrol, and omega. All you need to do is call 1-800, the number 4 in the word relief, 1-800-4-RELIEF, and you'll get the starter pack for $19.95. That's less than $1 a day. Relief Factor does work. Helps your body's anti-inflammatory system. It'll help my hamstring out eventually. So I'm doubling down for the next few days on Relief Factor. And you can find that starter pack for $19.95 at relieffactor.com. relieffactor.com. It is a very joy-filled day today. And our friends at the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews have asked me to thank the audience. Been very generous in the last week. It's a great way to celebrate today with a contribution because one of the big donors to the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, so moved by today, they are doubling any donation that is made today. So head over to hughhewitt.com and find the banner at the top, make a donation. The fellowship has given over $1 million in food and financial assistance to the hostages' families. They've given $5 million for renovation, expansion, support of more than a dozen resilience centers in Israel, providing mental health support to Israelis of all ages. They've done so much for the last 2 years. So we're celebrating today, and one donor is celebrating by matching your generosity. You can call 800-492-1717, 800-492-1717 if you would like as well. I want to go back to the weekend because I saw this and I couldn't believe it, and I said so on X, and almost 400,000 people agreed with me. Cut number 2, the vice president was on with George Stephanopoulos yesterday on this.
I don't know what tape you're referring to, George. I saw media reports that Tom Homan accepted a bribe. There's no evidence of that. And here's, George, why fewer and fewer people watch your program and why you're losing credibility. Because you're talking for now 5 minutes with the Vice President of the United States about this story regarding Tom Homan, a story that I've read about, but I don't even know the video that you're talking about. Meanwhile, low-income women can't get food because the Democrats and Chuck Schumer have shut down the government. Right now, we're trying to figure out how to pay our troops because Chuck Schumer has shut down the government. You are focused on a bogus story. You're insinuating criminal wrongdoing against a guy who has done nothing wrong instead of focusing on the fact that our country is struggling because our government's shut down. Let's talk about the real issues, George. I think the American people would benefit much more from that than from you going down some weird left-wing rabbit hole where the facts clearly show that Tom Homan didn't engage in any criminal wrongdoing.
It's not a weird left-wing rabbit hole. I didn't insinuate anything. I asked you whether Tom Homan accepted $50,000, as was heard on an audio tape recorded by the FBI in September 2024, and you did not answer the question. Thank you for your time this morning.
No, George, I said that I don't.
Up next. We'll be right back.
All right. That is, well, what I put on X. That is the most unprofessional treatment of a guest I can recall seeing, especially the Vice President of the United States, and it should oblige ABC to make changes immediately. George has always been courteous to me in the very few exchanges that we've had on and off air, so I'm surprised by that. But if any host cannot handle getting flattened, and George did get flattened there, and instead of pursuing the pushback that he got, runs away, then get a new host. The legacy media is generally unhinged, and probably because of the success of the president and Prime Minister Netanyahu with the hostage release pending. I've never seen anything like that, because he answered his question. He answered it dismissively with contempt in his voice because it was a contempt-deserving question. On the eve of the most important release of hostages since Ronald Reagan was sworn in. On the eve of the most important event since the Berlin Wall fell down. George Stephanopoulos is asking, in the middle of a shutdown, a government shutdown, George is asking the vice president about an allegation for which there has been no tape and no proof from a radicalized FBI. The vice president answered his question and was dismissive of it. And George was angry for having been called out. So he dismissed the vice president of the United States and went to commercial. Now, it's possible to be going to a hard break, in which case you say, we'll have to disagree, or disagree we must. We'll talk again, Mr. Vice President. Thank you for your time. But I have to go to a commercial. The newsy thing to do would be to extend the segment. But when you ain't got nothing, you got nothing to extend. It's outrageous. And ABC, of course, will do what they did with Kimmel. Put George back on. And they'll continue to lose audience. And Bob Iger at Disney is going to continue to look into the mirror every day and say, do I have what it takes to turn this around? Because I got to fire everybody. It really was pretty outrageous. I was also on, I'll play Kill Meat a little bit later. I want to go to the Egyptian conference where President Trump landed this. He's already left Egypt. He had this to say, cut number 19.
This is the day that people across the region and around the world have been working, striving, hoping, and praying for. They have done things over the last month that I think were really unthinkable. Nobody thought this could happen. With the historic agreement we've just signed, those prayers of millions have finally been answered. As you know, the hostages have been returned, and further work goes on having to do with the, sadly to say, bodies. Together we've achieved what everybody said was impossible. At long last, we have peace in the Middle East, and it's a very simple expression, peace in the Middle East, and we've heard it for many years, but nobody thought it could ever get there, and now we're there.
More coming up from that remarkable press conference in a little bit. One of our sponsors is American for Free Markets, and they are very, very grateful to President Trump for stopping the debanking movement among America's biggest banks. Regulators pressured banks to close accounts for industries and individuals they did not like. This politically motivated debanking trampled on the freedoms of American business people and of citizens over things like guns. You know all these stories. That's why Americans for Free Markets is thanking President Trump for standing up for freedom, urging Congress to follow his lead. Together they can establish a national fair access standard to prevent services from being denied based on political, social, or religious views. What a shock. First Amendment resonant law. That would bring clarity, consistency, and a long overdue accountability to financial regulations. Find out more at forfreemarkets.com. F-O-R freemarkets.com. That's forfreemarkets.com. F-O-R, forfreemarkets.com. Ambassador Michael Oren will open hour number 2 today on the Hugh Hewitt Show, Israel's former ambassador to the United States. Do not miss that. Let me do a couple of moments for our sponsors here on the program, one of which has been with us a long time, besthotgrills.com. I bring it up because you might be celebrating today, because the world is celebrating, at least the good-hearted world is celebrating at the release of the hostages today. besthotgrill.com. Go there if you're going to treat yourself to something today. Go to besthotgrill.com. I've got one. Dwayne's got one. They make the Solaire infrared grill. They make it here in the United States of America. It is perfect for today's busy lifestyle because it'll absolutely take that meat, go up to 3,000 degrees in a minute, keep the juice in, sear on the outside. It is flavorful. It is a grill master's work of art, and they will create works of culinary art with besthotgrill.com. You can also use it before you buy it. Try it before you buy it. Find out all the details at besthotgrill.com. Again, that's a Solaire infrared grill. It's only available from our friends Rhett and Irene, besthotgrill.com. They've been advertising with us for a long time. Boy, do they have hundreds of happy customers who've been a part of the Hugh Hewitt Show family for a very long time. besthotgrill.com. Let me also save you some money this hour, because I'm going to spend a lot of time next hour talking with Josh Kroshauer and with Vic Mattis and with Richard Hunt and, of course, Dr. Oren. Let me also tell you about Consumer Cellular, because if you've got one of these phones, then you're paying for data. You've got a data plan. And if your data plan is what I think it is, you're paying way too much for data. If you're over 50, you're almost certainly paying too much for data. Call 1-800-411-4454. 1-800-411-4454. Why that number? Because you'll get a menu, push 1, push 2, push 3. After one button, you're talking to a live customer service representative here in the United States. One button. Takes less than 20 minutes to switch, and you'll save a lot of money for the rest of this year and all of next year. Why not start your holidays early by giving yourself the gift of a lower monthly phone bill? 1-800-411-4454. If you're over 50 years of age, the special deal they have for you is 2 lines for $60 a month, unlimited data. 2 lines, $30 a line each, for $60 a month, unlimited data. Now, some of you don't need much data at all, and they've got 5 gig plans and 10 gig plans, but But do remember, whether you call them at 1-800-411-4454 or go to consumercellular.org/Hugh, use my code HUGH25, and you'll save $5 off each of your first 5 monthly invoices. That's 1-800-411-4454 or consumercellular.com/Hugh. My code is HUGH25. Dr. Michael Oren joins us, former Israeli ambassador to the United States, historian extraordinaire. And Dr. Oren, I want to begin by thanking you for walking this audience through the last 2 years, all the terrible news, all the good news, the occasional breaking news. You've been reliable every week. Thank you for it. Tell us now, not what Israel's feeling, but what Michael Oren has been feeling the last 24 hours.
Well, thank you. Thank you for those warm words, Hugh. And I'm thinking about all the people who enabled me, my family, my neighborhood to survive the last 2 years, and not just to survive, but to emerge at the end of the day victorious. The sacrifice, the struggle, the pain, the agony of the families of the hostages, those who came back alive, those who are now hopefully being restored to their families for proper burial. I think of all of that. And I have to divide my feelings between those of a citizen of Israel, a former soldier of Israel, again, father, grandfather, but also a historian, and to see this in historical context and what this moment means, how we got here, what there's yet to achieve, how it stacks up against the myriad other peace initiatives in the Middle East that did not succeed. All of that I carry with me at this moment. It's a lot. It's a lot, but I feel at this moment, sort of immeasurably blessed.
Dr. Oren, if I were your publisher or your agent, I might have given you the day to celebrate. Now I'd be knocking on your door and asking for 75,000 words on the last 2 years. Are you going to write a book about this?
Well, right now, as we're speaking, my article on why this worked has been published in the Free Press. If you can get it right now, if you click on it. I have contracted with a major New York publisher to write a book about this war. There are about 700 books about October 7th already, and I'm not exaggerating, 700 books. There is no book about this war. And this war, perhaps even more than 1967 or any other event in modern military history, has been transformative and promises to truly transform the Middle East. We see what happens with the subsequent phases of the 20-point plans. But you can see a Middle East which looks just unrecognizably different from what it was on October 6th, 2023. We could have peace with Lebanon, peace with Syria, peace with Saudi Arabia. And through peace with Saudi Arabia, Israel has peace with the entire Sunni world, with the largest Muslim states that are outside the Middle East, with Pakistan, Indonesia, Azerbaijan. And we could even, and Donald Trump made this remark in Knesset, I think he meant it seriously, we could even see peace between Israel and Iran under perhaps a different leadership. So this entire region looks just unrecognizably different as a result of what Donald Trump and his team have accomplished today.
Now, Dr. Oren, I began the program by saying there are public events for which you are joyful and private events. Private events are getting married, having children, seeing them grow up, get married, and having grandchildren. All those are private events. In terms of public events of joy, I rate this up there with the Berlin Wall coming down, the release of the American hostages, and today. Is there anything else in that category?
I'm thinking back. I think, Sadat's visit to Israel, for example, was a big one. The various White House peace signing ceremonies, some of them proved to be very successful, others less so. I've been present at several. I was present at the 1994 signing of the peace treaty between Israel and Jordan with King Hussein, Bill Clinton, and Yitzhak Rabin. I was actually a guest at that. So I've been present at the creation of some of these. The Oslo Accords was a joyous occasion in September 1993 on the White House lawn. It didn't turn out so well, but it was certainly a joyous occasion. But what I think more than any other peace initiative, not only has this one succeeded in actually bringing about concrete results, the release of the hostages and ending the fighting, but it holds out the promise for subsequent phases that will bring peace not only to Gaza, but perhaps throughout the region. And as I said earlier, something that will certainly transform the region. And it's all contingent. It's not easy. There are tremendous heavy lifts awaiting, not the least of which, perhaps the primary of which, is the demilitarization of Gaza and disarming Hamas.
Now, the last I saw, Hamas was being difficult in the return of the remains of the other 28 hostages, those who had died. Has that accelerated? Has there been clarity on that?
Last I knew, there were only 4 remains returned of Israelis who were murdered by Hamas. They didn't just passively die there; they were murdered. And for those families, there's no closure. And I have been dealing with families of soldiers whose remains have been in Gaza now for over a decade. And I know the just exquisite agony that these families go through. It's very difficult to describe and for others to understand, but this will remain an open, bleeding wound unless those remains are returned to their loved ones for proper burial. And also, it will constitute a flagrant violation of the ceasefire agreement should Hamas fail to return those remains.
What would be the opinion of Israel generally about resuming combat if the remains are not returned expeditiously?
Well, it depends on what level of combat. I don't think Israeli forces are going to resume their major campaign into Gaza City. Very complex, given the international environment, given the trust that has been put in Donald Trump and his team, and also the fact that tens of thousands of Gazans have now returned to that city and once more constitute a human shield for Hamas. But there can be other levels of military or kinetic intervention. Any member of Hamas that goes out in the street with a gun could have an unfortunate meeting with a drone, and that could be done. But I think short of military means or beside military means, there are other means at the disposal of President Trump and his White House team, which is, for example, they can cut out certainly any arms and cash supplies to Hamas. They can stop Hamas's ability to steal humanitarian aid. Hamas steals 60% of that humanitarian aid and resells it at exorbitant prices on the open markets of Gaza and enriches itself. They can stop that. And we can empower other leadership circles in Gaza, including some of these militias and clan-based organizations that have arms and have a deep grudge against Hamas for bringing such destruction, raining such destruction and death on the Palestinian population of Gaza. I tell you frankly, if I were a Palestinian, if I were a Hamas terrorist, I would think twice before walking outside in the street with a gun.
All right, now, Dr. Oren, I want to get this question in. You're a diplomat's diplomat. You've been doing this. When did you start diplomacy? 30 years ago?
I think in the crib. It was kindergarten, something like that.
So,
yeah.
What do you make of Steve Witkoff rolling in on January 21st and spearheading this with Jared Kushner on his wing and Marco Rubio over here and Donald Trump behind them? But really, Witkoff, this is not what he does.
That's not what any of them really do. It's not what Jared Kushner had done, before 2020, before the Abraham Accords. But what Witkoff did, as Jared Kushner did and continues to do, is to throw out the rule book. Virtually every nostrum, every assumption of that, of the diplomatic, the diplomatic core, as it were, the hardcore, I should say it correctly, within the Beltway, in the mainstream media, in the universities, all had these assumptions that were totally proven wrong. For example, you can't make peace between Israel and an Arab country unless you first create a Palestinian state. Wrong. The way you end the war in Gaza is by pressuring Israel and cutting off arms supplies and military aid to Israel. Wrong, right? The minute you get back you can never get back all the hostages. You get to just get some hostages back for limited time, limited ceasefires. Wrong. I can go on with the wrong. It's like a pinball machine going wrong. And these gentlemen come from a different world. They come from the world of business. They come from the world of real estate. And they applied a number of rules from that world. One is that you get peace through strength. You don't get peace by broadcasting fear. You don't get peace by dismantling the Pax Americana in the Middle East. You get peace by projecting power against the Houthis, projecting power against the Iranians with great effect, and by backing up Israel's use of power, not pressuring Israel, saying, go ahead, go into Gaza, do what you have to do, but just get it done quickly. And then also personal relationships. We had in the previous administrations, in the Obama and Biden administrations, they basically cold-shouldered Netanyahu. They cold-shouldered and pressured other Middle Eastern leaders, particularly in Saudi Arabia. Kushner, Trump, and Witkoff come along, and they make personal friendships with everybody. And diplomacy, like everything else in life, Hugh, is 90% personal relationships. And so they threw out all these rule books, and they broke it, and they broke through to this historic achievement.
Exit question, Dr. Michael Oren. I'm looking forward to the book. Tell me when the title is. I got up 3 times last night to find out what was going on. Did you go to sleep at all?
Not much. Can you see? Can you see? But this is, it on top of the last 2 years, it's a minor concession. Believe me, it's a minor concession. And there were many nights during this war where we didn't sleep, we couldn't sleep. Many nights when my family was under fire, literally under fire by the rocket fire. So even if you wanted to sleep, the Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, the pro-Iranian rebels in Syria, the pro-Iranian militias in Iraq and Syria, and Iran itself was making sure we never got a full night's sleep. Right.
Well, I hope you get one tonight, and Godspeed in helping everyone get this organized. What a great day for Israel and the West and the United States and all your allies. Thank you for joining me. This must be your 1000th hit of the day, and I appreciate your taking the time to do it. Dr. Michael Oren, follow him on X at Dr. Michael Oren. Go read him at the Free Press, at his newsletter, The Clarity, on Substack. Josh Kroshauer is the editor-in-chief of Jewish Insider. You can follow Josh on X at Josh Kroshauer. Josh, I'm not Israeli, I'm not Jewish, but I was up 3 times last night to check on the news. Did you get any sleep at all?
Not a whole lot. I was up late into the night last night to see sort of the logistics and the time frame, and then when it looked like things were going to go on well into the night Eastern time, I got a little sleep, got up around 4 a.m. and watched the really unbelievable scenes of hostages who have been held in captivity for over 2 years being reunited in the most emotional of ways with their families. It was quite a scene, quite an accomplishment in diplomacy from President Trump, and quite a speech both from the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, in the Knesset this morning, and also from President Trump, who delivered. This may have been the best day so far of his second term. I think you could see it.
I agree.
In his joyfulness.
Now, you're too young to remember the release of the hostages from Iran. I count that as one of the 3 big public joyful days of my adult life. Berlin Wall coming down. You probably, maybe, might remember that. But this is number 3. What's it like within the Jewish diaspora in America today? What's your phone and text messages been like?
I mean, it's been pretty remarkable. Like the entire, I mean, the issue of getting the hostages back safe and sound was at a time when there was a lot of divisions, frankly, within parts of the Jewish community. This was something that united the entire Jewish community, and it was something that all of the communal institutions really poured their energy behind since October 7th of 2023. It was a long time coming, and you could hear those blessings from the parents, and in some cases they call the Shehachianu prayer. It's a new awakening, a new day, if you will, to paraphrase. I mean, really remarkable. I mean, just to think about where things were almost around the same time of the year 2 years ago, and now when the hostages were taken, and so much death and destruction, and now we see the last living hostages, all 20 of them, home safe and sound. And it really was quite a remarkable scene, both individually for me watching it, but also for the entire world watching these scenes.
Josh, for my benefit and the benefit of the other Gentiles, the massacre on 10/7 occurred on a holiday. Is that same holiday on the Jewish calendar tomorrow?
So the English calendar and the Hebrew calendar are slightly different dates because of the different cycles. So it's not exactly the same date, but it really, I mean, so the holiday of Simchat Torah, which is sort of the giving of the Torah of the Torah, is tomorrow. It's actually tonight in Israel, and that was the around the same time that October 7th happened on the Jewish calendar 2 years ago. So there is something of a full circle moment, to be sure, especially in Israel right now.
That's wild. Now, I have just checked in with Dr. Oren. Only 4 of the remains of the 28 who were murdered by Hamas in captivity have been returned. That's got to lead to a level of angst and a fear of being forgotten by those families. Is that story being covered closely?
Yeah. I mean, in Israel, that is. I mean, we actually reported on that this morning at Jewish Insider, and that's going to be something that is going to continue to be followed up on. I mean, I think the big challenge is it's very possible that Hamas doesn't know where the remains of every one of the deceased hostages or those who were murdered are. So I thought there were going to be more than four bodies, deceased bodies that were going to be returned as part of the deal. It sounds like there may be ongoing negotiations, but there may well be no clean resolution for some of the families. It's very possible that it'll be challenging at the very least to get resolved.
Well, overpromising and underdelivering is not a good idea with Donald Trump. And I think Hamas is going to find that out pretty quickly. What is your understanding of who is running what parts of Gaza right now? IDF's got 53% of it.
I mean, one of the more sort of shocking scenes in the immediate aftermath of the deal taking place was as the IDF withdrew from parts of Gaza, you saw Hamas take over and execute Palestinians who they suspected were collaborators or parts of, it just goes to show how evil and the necessity of wiping Hamas, I should say, from leadership and any kind of role in Gaza. I'm a little more skeptical that that's going to be the hard part in the days going forward. I mean, I think that the 20-point Trump plan really did lay out a pretty logical solution for how Gaza should be governed and how the pathway is to get there. Problem is, I don't know where now that the question is where's the momentum going to be to make sure that Hamas is no longer playing any role in Gaza. And based on some of the images and news developments yesterday with Hamas executing Palestinians that viewed as collaborators and other Palestinians, it just seems like it's a recipe for chaos.
And did you hear anything coming out of Egypt today? I've got some clips, one by the Pakistani prime minister, which is pretty stunning. What did you hear from that gathering that would give you hope or take it away?
Well, I heard bits and pieces of President Trump's comments in Egypt with the world leaders. Look, it's pretty remarkable that you have, Hugh, all of these allied Arab leaders together, on the same page, celebrating what is a real diplomatic accomplishment. It is not usual in that part of the world to have all those different countries being on the same page. The big question, though, the harder part, Hugh, is that what pressure will some of those Gulf states put on Hamas, and what role will they play in both the efforts to rid Gaza of Hamas and to promote a more technocratic, non-terroristic leadership?
Well said. I will look for you on the panel tonight with Bret Baier, Josh Kraushaar. Follow him on X at Josh Kraushaar. Thank you, Josh. Let me turn to warning you folks about the threats that lurk online for you and tell you about my sponsor, webroot.com. All of you who are online, whether with a cell or an iPad or a computer or all of the above, and everybody in your family, you're exposed to an ever-increasing array of AI-powered theft, AI-powered cons, AI-powered bad guys. And you need total protection. Webroot, total protection. The all-in-one product for individual covers one individual's and 5 devices, but you can also cover a family, up to 10 identities and 10 devices, lightning-fast antivirus to identity theft protection with dark web monitoring. You get a secure VPN, unlimited cloud backup. Webroot Total Protection helps defend every part of your digital life and up to $1 million in fraud expense reimbursement. 24/7 U.S.-based customer support. And right now, 60% off Webroot Total Protection at www.webroot.com/Hewitt. That 60% is only around for a limited time, but only when you go to webroot.com/Hewitt. That's www.webroot.com/Hewitt. Celebrate October. No scares, no tricks, no treats. Just get protected with webroot.com/Hewitt. www.webroot.com/Hewitt. Let's pause in the day-long celebration of the release of the hostages to focus on a little bit of business in our own domestic backyard. It's the Electronic Payments Coalition. Richard Hunt is back with me, great sponsor of our show. And we're always on the wall watching what Dick Durbin is up to. And occasionally Roger Marshall, good senator from Kansas, comes along with him. But Dick Durbin is the lead on this. And good to see you, Richard. Are they back? Will they not go away? Will they not leave our points alone?
Hugh, in the good old words of John Madden, they're going nowhere fast. No, they're not going anywhere. They tried once again to put this bill on the National Defense Authorization Act. Now they're back trying to put it on one of the next crypto acts. They're not going away. Look, this is the dynamic duo on behalf of the corporate mega stores, Roger Marshall, Dick Durbin. But Hugh, thanks because of your listeners and people like you going to guardyourcard.com. Some 5 million letters have been sent to the United States Senate saying, keep your hands off my miles, keep your hands off my credit card wallet as well. So thank you to you and to all your followers. Not only have they not secured a vote, Hugh, they can't even get this bill reintroduced. They're losing sponsorship. So thank you very much.
Well, that's good news. And I'll tell you why it is. It's not me and it's not you. It's the fact that when word gets out, ordinary people who don't do a lot of politics. I'm driving along this morning. We had to make a trip this morning and get back. And I'm with the fetching Mrs. Hewitt, and I said, I got to get back by time to talk to Richard because they want to take our points away. And she looked at me side-eyed and said, what? And I said, yeah, there's a coalition that want to take your points away. And she said, why? I tried to explain to her why. I said, it just basically is big stores want to control your credit cards. And am I right about that, Richard?
No, you're 110% correct. You remember, Hugh, they did this in 2010 during the Dodd-Frank debate where they put a cap on your debit cards. And there went your reward miles on debit cards. There went free checking, and safety and security went up. So now Walmart and Target and Home Depot are back once again trying to save a penny for them. But it's going to cut corners on your safety and security of your credit card. Look, we spend billions of dollars each and every year making sure your credit card is safe and secure. We make sure that some 15 million folks across the country can also use those reward points to see their loved ones or go see the Ohio State University finally beat Michigan this year.
Which will happen.
Of course, millions of people, yes. And of course, millions of people, the number one reason people choose a reward program is cash back, Hugh, especially when it comes to the holidays.
Now, I got to tell you as well, I could not explain fully what the motivation was. So I finally said, some lobbyists have obviously gotten to Durbin and they've offered him money and he's got a job lined up for when he's done because he's on the glide path out. But this still makes no sense. And I'm not surprised they're running out of co-sponsors because try and take points away from Americans and they are going to be angry with you. So good on the Electronic Payments Coalition for bringing that to everybody's attention. Excuse me for the interruption on my electronic machine here, but keep going, Richard.
Yeah, look, again, one powerful senator, Dick Durbin, did this in 2010 by himself. No hearings, no regulatory briefings. He just went to the floor of the United States Senate and got this passed. Now he's got Roger Marshall of Kansas as his buddy. They've been joined at the hip trying to get this thing passed for over 2 years now. This is price controls. And Hugh, let me just tell you this. Of all the arguments they've been using lately, the one that is the most astonishing is they say we should be like Europe. In Europe, they have price controls. Now, I'm sure Roger Marshall would not like price controls for the beef that they produce in Kansas. Since when does this country want the United States to have politicians introduce legislation that sets price controls on our products in the United States of America?
Yeah, well, I made one run at Dr. Marshall at a Bernie Moreno event 2 years ago and got waved off. I'll try it again because it does not make any sense. Millions of Americans have built up credit card balances. So let's close with guardyourcard.com. Does it really matter if people go to guardyourcard.com? Richard, we got like 30 seconds.
Yeah, 1,000%. Guardyourcard.com. You can learn all about the bill, but it's also a way, Q, for your listeners to press a button to contact their United States Senator. Right now, we've had 5 million letters go in, thousands of Hill visits. We cannot let up because Dick Durbin did it in 2010. And now he's trying to do it again with Roger Marshall in 2025.
All right, guardyourcard.com, America. Go there during the break. Add your name. We're celebrating today Freedom for the Hostages. Let's also build a little wall around your credit card as well and your points. You earned them. You should be able to keep them. guardyourcard.com. I'll be right back. Thank you, Richard Hunt. I'll be right back on
Thanks,
the
Steve.
Hugh Hewitt Show. Victorino Mattis, otherwise known as Vic Mattis, is co-host of the Getting Hammered podcast. He's either the culture and arts editor at the Washington Free Beacon or the weekend editor at the Free Beacon. I've called him both over the years. I've decided to finally figure out which one it is. What's your official title, Vic?
I believe my official title, Hugh, is Arts and Culture, but I take Weekend Beacon editor. I take any title you want to give me, frankly.
All right, I'm going to give you the title of Guy Who Makes Me Feel Bad on Monday, because I'm looking at what you posted on the weekend, and you had Meyer Soloveitchik's timely review of Peter Berkowitz's Explaining Israel. I missed that. Tell me about that.
Well, it's a wonderful book. It's a collection of essays, actually, primarily from Peter Berkowitz, who's the great legal scholar and Israel scholar as well. And it's a look back over the 10 or 15 years of essays that Peter and others have written about the state of Israel. I mean, going from, let's say, the end of the Second Intifada or so through the 2010s. And the great difficulties and the challenges that is faced in the world. And then obviously when you reach towards the end of his book, Explaining Israel, it gets to 10/7 and what happens and what next. And of course, this book was published before today or this past week's momentous events. But it does give you hope that they have to prevail. Israel has to prevail largely because of its strength and security. They can't count on anybody else. Certainly if Donald Trump did not win the election, they would probably not be able to count on Kamala Harris for the kind of support that Trump has lent to Israel. And the reviewer is the great Rabbi Meyer Soloveitchik, a terrific guy and a scholar in his own right.
Well, was it a premonition, or were you honoring 10/7 when you commissioned the review for that weekend?
I was largely honoring Peter Berkowitz, who's a friend of mine. No, I'm just kidding. It was a book that came out. Peter's a very smart guy, an occasional contributor to the Weekend Beacon, and I thought, okay, let's do it. Let's have this book reviewed by another very smart person, as I mentioned, Meyer Soloveitchik. And I happened to have enough reviews, and we publish around 3 or 4 reviews per Sunday. I had a bit of a backup, and I said, okay, let me hold on to this. And then I said, wait a minute, 10/7 is coming up. Let's just hold on to it for this particular occasion. I try to do that and make the Weekend Beacon somewhat timely from weekend to weekend.
Well, very well done. Now, Vic, pop quiz time. In my adult life, and I'm older than you, I listed 3 events of great joy that are public events. Private events, you get married, you have babies, they grow up and get married, you have grandchildren. Those are public events of joy. And 3 great public events of joy: the fall of the Berlin Wall, the return of our hostages in 1980, and this morning. Do you have anyone else to add to that list? Some commenters told me landing on the moon, and I suppose I should have put that on there, but that was more marvel than joy.
And that was, obviously before my time and possibly before yours, Hugh. I don't know how
I can remember it barely.
Okay. No, what I remember, the first thing in terms of joy, what I remember is the return of the hostages after Reagan became president, in fact. And it was just wall-to-wall coverage of the plane and waiting for them to come down the stairs onto the tarmac. And it was a very big deal. And that was one of them. And you mentioned about the fall of the Berlin Wall. I was in high school at the time, and I could not believe it was going to happen. My father claimed it was going to happen, and I said to him, what does he know? He's a doctor. He doesn't spend that much time on these issues. I said, it is not going to happen this easily. And sure enough, by October of '89, it started happening, and the protests were building, and they, started to chisel away at it. And, without firing a shot, except for in places like Romania, that happened. And then, of course, the end of the Soviet Union. That was a very, very exciting time. So, no, I don't think sadly, I don't know if I can add much.
There's one that not many people remember, which is the return of the POWs from Vietnam. I know about it because I did the Nixon Library, and there's an exhibit on it, and we, every 10 years, host the still living POWs back. But that was a controversial time. It was welcome. Everyone was happy that they came home. But the war was so controversial that it was a double-sided sort of thing. They were happy for the families and for the soldiers, but they did not like the war. I don't know that there was much celebration, and you wouldn't remember that anyway.
No, but I do remember the images, and I had looked back on that particular occasion. That's true. I remember seeing the picture of John McCain returning with white hair prematurely, and also Admiral Stockdale, who had also suffered horrendously. But there were many others, as you mentioned, and it was something that had gone unspoken, unmentioned, because of the controversial nature of that war for many, many years.
The good news, I tell people that are worried about the hostages who've been in horrific circumstances for 2 years, those POWs are tough hombres. And it's been my honor to know a few of them over the years because of the Nixon Library. But people are amazingly resilient. I want to go back, though. Joyful days around the world, except for fanatics and crazies, are very few and far between. We ought to just enjoy this one day.
No, absolutely. Savor this moment because, in a few days we'll be back to talking about the shutdown, and people are going to be complaining about the Epstein files and who knows what else. And certainly the Trump administration deserves to take this victory lap because of what he's been able to pull off. And special props too to Jared Kushner, obviously, his son-in-law. I don't think it would have been possible without him.
And Witkoff.
So this is a rare
and
moment.
Witkoff.
And of course, and Steve Witkoff, absolutely. People had their doubts. Lots of pieces written.
Oh, yeah.
Very skeptical about, what's he doing there? He's in over his head, and suddenly this happens. Trump, for all of his various issues, he still has very good instincts when it comes to these sort of things and making deals, and this is the perfect place for him to make a deal. He knew that they wanted to do it. He smartly isolated Hamas. After leveling Iran, it was no longer a factor. And the rest of the Arab world, they're trying to look forward. They want to do business.
Vic,
yeah.
Last night from Air Force One, the President of the United States posted over at Truth Social a column I wrote 3 weeks ago about how deal guys get deals done. I mean, out of the blue. I was waking up every 3 hours to find that out. And then I see that Donald Trump has posted a column of mine, and it resonated with it. Deal guys get deals done. There are deal guys. I'm not one of them. I don't know if you are, but I'm not a deal guy. That's a
no.
high
I'm
wire
not a
act.
business. I'm not a business guy, but it's an amazing time. The critics are suspiciously silent, and it's a lot of grudging concessions. So let's just enjoy this moment.
You would hope they would come out and actually say, "Well done, Mr. Bond. Well played." Vic Mattis, thank you. Follow him over on X at Victorino Mattis. Read the Free Beacon. Await the quarterly Getting Hammered podcast. May it be back sooner than a quarter. I have a brand new column over at Fox News, the title of which is "The World Doubted but Trump Delivered. Hostages Free, Terror Defeated, Hope Restored." And you can go over to Fox News. It's on the landing page. It's just Hugh Hewitt, Fox News. You can find it. I wrote it this morning after I'd confirmed that the hostages were back. I normally write on Tuesdays and Thursdays morning, but my editor, the wonderful Lynn, called him and said, "Can we run with this today?" And I said, "You bet." She made a couple of tweaks because it was going to be originally a Tuesday morning, and they posted over at Fox. I think I may be on Hannity tonight as well. I hope so. I love being on Joyful Day as well as not so joyful day. Let me remind everyone in our audience, the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews has raised $1 million for the hostage families, $5 million for very remarkable stand-up shelters and resilience centers that are treating everyone in Israel who's gone through trauma of the last 2 years. Your donations help. And right now, one of the IFCJ big donors has stepped forward to match. I don't believe there's a limit on the match either. Usually there's $1 million limit or something like that. I don't think there's a limit on the match. Nope. Your gift doubles today. So if you want to support Israel, the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews does that. 800-492-1717. 800-492-1717. Or just click on the IFCJ banner at the top of HughHewitt.com. And whatever you give, $5 or $500,000 will be doubled. And the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews sponsoring this, and we encourage them to come because they are such a great organization. Thank you, IFCJ. Also want to thank Relief Factor. I'm taking 2 of them today. Reason being, they said in hour number 1, I have the mobility of my grandfather's ottoman. It had like 2 wheels, so it took 4 people to move it, and I'm like that right now. So I've got my Icarian Curcumin, Resveratrol, and Omega. Normally I only take 1 packet a day. But I'm doing it twice today because I pulled a hamstring. Now, that is normally associated with wide receivers. I am not a wide receiver. I'm wide. I receive your messages on my subtext, but I am not a wide receiver. I take my relief factor, though. It'll be fine before I'm back on the byways of the Beltway later this week. And I want to tell you all, Relief Factor does work. Call 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, 1-800-4-RELIEF, or go to relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. You will get the starter pack for $19.95. That's less than $1 a day. And you'll thank me. It does work. When you do something stupid like I have done, you will thank me. Because it'll heal up. The minor ache and pain will be gone. Don't go anywhere. Noah Rothman is along next hour. More audio from the president in Egypt. Great speech today in front of the Knesset. And I think my favorite part is when he turned to President Herzog of Israel and said, "Why don't you pardon Bibi? Cigars, really?" And he's right. After these 2 years, he's right. Historic day, the release of the hostages. Really remarkable day, but that wasn't enough for Donald Trump. After he greeted the hostage families, after he spoke to the Knesset, he flew to the Egypt Peace Conference, and he declared cut number 21.
We've all agreed that supporting Gaza must be done to lift up the people themselves, but we don't want to fund anything having to do with bloodshed, hatred, or terror, as has happened in the past. And for the same reason, we're also agreed that Gaza's reconstruction requires that it be demilitarized and that a new, honest civilian police force must be allowed to create a safe condition for the people in Gaza.
There are still many, many issues. Only 4 of the hostage bodies have been returned. 24 have not been returned. Hamas is screwing around again. That's why the president made that comment about terror. He continued cut number 22.
Today, for the first time anyone can remember, we have a once-in-a-lifetime chance to put the old feuds and bitter hatreds behind us. And that's why so many people in this room, they didn't get along. Some did, some didn't, but they're getting along now. This has brought the people together. This is the first time the Middle East crisis has brought people together as opposed to driving them apart. And to declare that our future will not be ruled by the fights of the generations past, which is foolish. So together, let us continue in the spirit of cooperation and goodwill that has finally brought us to this incredible, historic breakthrough. If we do together, we will reach the Middle East's incredible destiny, a safe and prosperous and beautiful crossroads of culture and commerce, faith in humanity and geographic center. This will be the geographic center of the world.
He is also followed at the podium by the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mohammad Shehbaz Sharif, who made an astonishing 2-minute set of comments. You ought to hear cut number 23.
Today is one of the greatest days in contemporary history because peace has been achieved after untiring efforts led by President Trump, who is genuinely a man of peace, who has relentlessly and untiringly worked throughout these months, day in and day out, to make this world a place to live with peace and prosperity. I would say that Pakistan had nominated President Donald Trump for Nobel Peace Prize for his outstanding, extraordinary contributions to first stop war between India and Pakistan and then achieve ceasefire along with his very wonderful team. And today, again, I would like to nominate this great president for Nobel Peace Prize, because I genuinely feel that he is the most genuine and most wonderful candidate for Peace Prize, because he has brought not only peace in South Asia, saved millions of people, their lives. And today, here in Sharm el-Sheikh, achieving peace in Gaza is saving millions of lives in the Middle East.
You can't get the American left to recognize that, but you can get it from Pakistan. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Rubio met with reporters after the peace conference, cut number 24.
Egypt's been a phenomenal participant. I think both Steve and Jared will tell you the critical role they played, and they can tell you themselves. They hosted the talks here, and they're going to play a very important role now in the follow-up, the implementation of this, which is really, it's not simply about restoring Gaza, it is about transforming the region. So we have an incredible partner, a long alliance, very capable partner here, and a tremendous collection of leaders. This is clearly, in my mind, I think in the mind of everyone in this room, probably one of the most important days for world peace in 50 years. And that's not an exaggeration.
Only 50?
Maybe 100. Certainly since the end of World War II.
Only 50. The president is still the president. Now I want to switch to domestic politics because it's rush hour in Virginia, and Virginians do not vote for Spanberger. Now, Jay Jones is falling like a rock because he's a disturbed individual who texted about killing Republicans, and that came out. He's done. He's just done. People are still showing up with him in ads. The teachers' union's still sticking by him, but they don't know what to do. They know he's a nut, and they know he's disturbed. But Abigail Spanberger is also fallen like a rock. Cut number 25. She had an interview with WHSV's Caleb Peake. Listen to this if you can stand it.
What do you make of Earl Sears' claim that you're fine with, quote, putting men in girls' locker rooms?
The reality is that the federal government has the ability to change the letter of the law, right? Through Congress, through the Senate, bills go to the president's desk. Right now, what we are seeing is there are differences between what is the law of the land under Title IX and what are executive orders put out by the White House. And in circumstances where there are conflicting evidence or conflicting interpretations, the reality is the federal government has to be clear in what is the real guidance available to our schools as it relates to use of locker rooms. The reality is that we have multiple jurisdictions who believe they are following the letter of the law and have their lawyers conveying why. And at the end of the day, we have a president of the United States who is taking away and threatening federal funding. What I think is so egregious is that this is a tool that unfortunately this president continues to use, of the threat of federal funding. Congress passed funding. It is not the president's ability. This is, basic Article 1. This is, if you believe in the Constitution, the president doesn't have the ability to just pull back funding. And it isn't just to these public schools. It is to our research institutions. It's for cancer research. It is for funding to conservation programs under USDA that are vital to so many of the farmers and producers who employ rotational grazing practices and other conservation practices, voluntary ones, on their land, who've been promised investments, and the president just pulls back those funds. The real challenge that exists here is that we have a president who is using congressionally approved federal spending as a cudgel. And just as an issue of principle, right now it's coming after the schools. Before, it was coming after conservation programs. Now, it's also consistently across our universities and institutions of higher education and research. It's a dire circumstance. But when it comes down to understanding the implementation of how it is that our kids are coexisting in the classroom or on the sports field, yes, I do think that in many cases, it's the local community that knows their community best, and can readily make decisions and provide guidance about how to ensure that all our kids are safe.
All right. I want to go back to the beginning of that question, which was a 2-minute and 50-second question and answer. So let's just hear the question at the start.
What do you make of Earl Sears' claim that you're fine with, quote, putting men in girls' locker rooms?
Now, stop. Can we play again, just the question?
What do you make of Earl Sears' claim that you're fine with, quote, putting men in girls' locker rooms?
Are you familiar with the game Chutes and Ladders? Did you ever play that as a child? Chutes and Ladders. Somehow we started with that question. Can we hear that question again?
What do you make of Earl Sears' claim that you're fine with, quote, putting men in girls' locker rooms?
And we ended up at the United States Department of Agriculture, rotational grazing policies, voluntary. I don't know. I couldn't diagram the sentence in 100 years. She was shaking. She was visibly worried because she can't answer the question. So she ran out the clock. It was like watching Dean, the basketball coach at UNC, who would play the four corners offense until the end of the game, and they would just pass it back. She just ran out the clock. And I cannot believe Abigail Spanberger is going to get a vote from anyone, because governors have to be able to act in an emergency, not freeze like a deer in the headlights, as she just did right there. Noah C. Rothman, senior writer for National Review, joins me. Noah, open-ended question. What do you make of today?
It's a great day. It's almost a glorious day. I've had tears in my eyes just about all day long watching the videos of the hostages being returned to their families. It's very gratifying. And while there is some cause for consternation in the deal, and I understand it, it's a very distasteful, lopsided exchange of detainees, security detainees inside Israel, for these hostages who should never have been used as leverage in the first place. I get it. I'm very frustrated with it. I can't gainsay the Israeli reaction, though. Israelis seem to have compartmentalized the risk that they're running of perhaps another Sinwar being out there with the elation that they clearly feel at the end of Israel's longest war, a spectacularly successful war, which has advanced its strategic objectives and America's strategic objectives. It was a terrible, horrible day on October 7th, but the world has changed in measurable ways that will benefit the United States and Israel in the long run. And that's about as good as you can say for a war like this. It's been a horrible war, but it has achieved a lot of successes, tactical and strategic successes. And we will be celebrating those successes, I suspect, for many years to come.
No, I began the show today by saying the best days of a life are divided into two categories, public and private. And our private days are days, for example, when we get married, when we have children, when our children get spouses that we know and love, and when they have grandchildren or achievements of one sort or another. You can have a great day on a private. Public great days, I began to list them up until today. Number one was the fall of the Berlin Wall. This is now either number 2 or number 3. The release of our hostages when Ronald Reagan was inaugurated is probably still number 2, but then it's number 3. I mean, there are other great days. I was very happy when Justice Kavanaugh was confirmed, Justice Thomas was confirmed. I was very glad when we toppled the statue of Saddam. But in terms of great, great days, it's really the fall of the Berlin Wall, the release of our hostages from Iran, and the release of these hostages. You got any other ones to add?
Oh, I think that's a fine list. It is a poetic and symbolic summation of the events that occurred after October 7th. The decimation of Hezbollah and Hamas, the fall of the Assad regime, the attack on Iran's nuclear program, all of them combine in this day to symbolize the events that have occurred. And the course of history that has been changed. I think that's a really good summation, because just like the Berlin Wall, the collapse of the Berlin Wall was sort of a symbolic beginning of the end of the Soviet Union. A lot of events contributed to it, and there were many subsequent events that followed, all of which could have gone a different direction. You know, I mean, we did not have to have a union treaty. We did not have to open the archives and give Estonian deputies access to the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. You know, we did not have the August coup necessarily in our heads. So a lot of things can happen in between the future, you know, the implementation of this deal and the fruition of a new destiny for the Middle East. But you can see the outlines of it from here, right? I mean,
yes,
the
you
Abraham
can.
Accords. The Abraham Accords were predicated on two really big ideas. One is that the threat from Iran is the biggest problem. We need to confront it. And two, the thorny Palestinian issue, let's put that on the back burner for now. Peace, we won't get there first. We'll do that last. And it has been a spectacularly successful formula. And the Hamas attack on 10/7 was an attempt to arrest the progress that was happening in the Middle East. And what do we learn today? We learned from the Washington Post that military coordination among 6-7 Arab nations with Israel never stopped over the course of that war. In fact, it deepened. And that tells you something about the trajectory in which the Middle East is headed. Normalization will continue. Integration will continue. Israel is no longer a pariah state in the region. It may be in Western Europe, maybe in Ottawa, but it's not in its region. And that's going to have a profound effect on regional development and the diplomacy and the diplomatic initiatives that the West engages in, especially those states like the United States, and hopefully we can convince some of our allies, who recognize the reality on the ground for what it is. We're not concocting two-state solutions. I'm sorry, continue.
No, we're not going to. I don't want to dampen the joy, but Hamas is doing Hamas things with the remains of the other hostages. Is that going to be casus belli again? Are they playing another stupid game in their head that they think they're scoring points when they're not?
Yeah, I think so. And I'm not entirely sure where the deal goes from here. If there's a sustained and directed effort to undermine the deal, then the deal's off and the war starts again. I'm also very worried about the prospect that we will look at Hamas's effort to rebrand itself as something other than Hamas and say, well, phase 2 is successful here, right? They disarmed, they disbanded, Hamas is in control of the Gaza Strip anymore, mission accomplished. There are pitfalls in the way here. And I do worry that the deal will become something that we have to preserve, even if the deal's terms are not being observed.
That's a Tony Blinken, Jake Sullivan approach. I don't think that's a Marco Rubio, Donald Trump approach.
I don't think so either. Yet to be determined. I don't want to engage in a failure of imagination here, because the deal is such a profound diplomatic coup that the logic of insisting that it is intact when it is not could prevail. That's just a human foible. It's not necessarily a Democratic or Republican foible. But as you say, we've got many positive indications from this administration that it doesn't suffer from the same cognitive flaws that the last administration suffered from. The first being that force, the application of force, is the prerequisite to peace when you're at war. There's a very simple formula: defeat Israel's enemies first, make peace with them second. That just proved so elusive to much of Western Europe and much of Western opinion, especially left-leaning opinion, over the course of this war. And it's such a simple and self-evidently successful formula that you have to wonder if it will catch on, especially in those quarters that are giving Donald Trump credit where he deserves it, like, for example, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. You can't say the same for just about every other Democrat, but many have been coming around to the compelling logic of force first, peace second.
And a last question. There have been 2 years of anti-Semitic outbursts on campuses across the United States, dressed up as pro-Gaza outbursts. What happens to that effort? I mean, their reason for being is gone. And do they go away?
No, they don't go away, but they rebrand just as Hamas is rebranding. There was violence on America's campuses before October 7th, 2023. There was radicalism, anti-Westernism, and agitation bordering on harassment and violence and crossing the threshold into harassment and violence at places like Berkeley, Middlebury College. That's going to continue. October 7th wasn't it wasn't the galvanizing force here. It was just something around which that they could rally to channel and harness the violent energies that they were already exhibiting. We're going to continue to see that. It'll be another cause. It'll be a different cause. But it all stems from the same anti-Westernism, the same belief that the West is the font from which all evils spring and must be destroyed. That is what we're contending with.
Well, you know, peace is itself a solvent of idiocy, so hopefully peace will make some of it go away. Noah C. Rothman on X, read him at National Review. I hear him occasionally on the Commentary Podcast and usually on the Editor's Podcast. Thank you, Noah. Noah C. Rothman on X. If you are a subscriber to my YouTube channel, you've already had pushed out to you my opening monologue about what a great day is today. If you're not a subscriber to my YouTube channel, I would ask you, please, to go over to YouTube, Hugh Hewitt, like and subscribe. We don't send many out every day, like 3 or 4 a day. I'll send out Jonathan Bush, probably Noah Rothman talking about today as well, and Michael Lauren. So those will be posted over at my YouTube channel. But if you like and subscribe, they just come to you in your feed. And I appreciate that. Before I turn to a little bit of lighthearted football talk with Doug Lesmerises, let me go back over the critical parts of President Trump's speech to the Knesset today, cut number 26.
It's a great honor. Nice place. Very nice place. Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, esteemed members of the Knesset and cherished citizens of Israel, we gather on a day of profound joy, of soaring hope, of renewed faith, and above all, a day to give our deepest thanks to the Almighty God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. After 2 harrowing years in darkness and captivity, 20 courageous hostages are returning to the glorious embrace of their families, and it is glorious. 28 more precious loved ones are coming home at last to rest in this sacred soil for all of time. And after so many years of unceasing war and endless danger, today the skies are calm, the guns are silent, the sirens are still, and the sun rises on a holy land that is finally at peace, a land and a region that will live, God willing, in peace for all eternity.
He continued, cut number 27.
This is not only the end of a war, this is the end of an age of terror and death and the beginning of the age of faith and hope and of God. It's the start of a grand concord and lasting harmony for Israel and all the nations of what will soon be a truly magnificent region. I believe that so strongly. This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East.
Cut number 28.
I want to express my gratitude to a man of exceptional courage and patriotism, whose partnership did so much to make this momentous day possible. You know who I'm talking about. There's only one, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Baby, please stand up. And he is not easy, I want to tell you. He's not the easiest guy to deal with. But that's what makes him great. That's what makes him great.
One more cut number 29 of the president addressing the Knesset today.
It's an incredible triumph for Israel and the world to have all of these nations working together as partners in peace. And it's pretty unusual for you to see that, but it happened in this case. This was a very unusual point in time. a brilliant point in time. Generations from now, this will be remembered as the moment that everything began to change, and change very much for the better. Like the USA right now, it will be the golden age of Israel and the golden age of the Middle East.
I sure hope he's correct. Now, you can celebrate today. There's a great way. We have a sponsor that is sponsoring a campaign, the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. The IFCJ has contributed over $1 million to the families of survivors and financial assistance to the hostages' families. They spent $5 million in renovations, expansions, and support of more than a dozen resilience centers in Israel, providing mental health support to Israelis of all ages. You can help, and a generous donor to the IFCJ is doubling every contribution received today. So if you will call 800-492-1717, 1-800-492-1717, or go to the banner at the top of HughHewitt.com. It's secure, it's quick, you cannot miss it. Or call 800-492-1717, or the banner for the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews at the top of HughHewitt.com. I want to play some more of President Trump's speech to the Knesset earlier today, because there's some things I've been going so fast through all of it. If I repeat, I apologize. Cut number 4.
From the very first day that modern Israel was founded, we have stood together through thick and thin of setbacks, and through victory and defeat, through glory and heartache. We have built industries together. We have made discoveries together. We have confronted evil together, and we have waged war together. And perhaps most beautifully of all, we have made peace together. And this week, against all odds, we have done the impossible and brought our hostages home.
Cut number 5.
The God who once dwelled among his people in the city still calls us, in the words of Scripture, the turn from evil and do good, to seek peace and pursue it. So he still whispers truth into the hills and knolls and valleys of his magnificent creation, and he still writes hope into the hearts of his children all over the world.
Number 6.
Over the past 2 years, I've met many of the families of the Israelis taken hostage and those that were taken hostage. Unbelievable. I've looked into their eyes. I've seen the worst nightmares of their suffering, but I've also seen something else, the beautiful love of the people, the love of people, frankly, that hold things together, the love that gives you the courage to carry on through thousands of years of persecution and repression, and to emerge with the heart of David. It's the heart of David. It's that love that's defeated the enemies of civilization, built this incredible country and this unbelievable economy, and forged one of the great democracies of the world.
And he saluted the future of Israel. Cut number 7.
The story of fierce Israeli resolve and triumph since October 7th should be proof to the entire world that those who seek to destroy this nation are doomed to bitter failure. The state of Israel is strong, and it will live and thrive forever.
It was not without a partisan shot or two. Cut number 8.
So instead of building fortresses to keep enemies at bay, the nations of this region should be building infrastructure to weave your commerce closer together, because you've got to compete with the big world out there in commerce now. It's a different kind of competition. Instead of making weapons and missiles, the wealth of this region should flow to schools and medicine, industry, and frankly, the new hot thing, artificial intelligence. It's a lot of intelligence they're going to have to be thrown off to pay back these sums of money that they're doing. But that's really the hot one. And I might say that the United States, a year ago, was a dead country. I say it to people. I heard it first from the King of Saudi Arabia. I then heard it from UAE. I heard it from Qatar. I heard it from many other countries. A year ago, the United States of America was a dead country. Now it's the hottest country anywhere in the world. It is the hottest. There's no question about it. In fact, if you go back a year ago, before the election, although once we had November 5th, we became hot because people got it. I would say November 5th was a time that we became really hot. But once you go back a couple of years, if I were in charge and the country was doing what they nobody was going to ask me to speak. Nobody asked Joe Biden to come up and speak, I guarantee you that. And if they did, he would have turned them down, I promise you. He didn't speak. He didn't speak, and he didn't speak well. But all of the countries in the Middle East, it could have, what we're doing now, it could have happened a long time ago, but it was strangled and set back almost irretrievably by the administrations of Barack Obama and then Joe Biden. There was a hatred toward Israel. There was an absolute hatred. The setbacks really started when President Obama signed the Iran nuclear deal. This was a disaster for Israel, and it was a disaster for everyone. And I remember that Bibi Netanyahu came to the United States and worked so hard to try and get Obama not to do that deal. He worked so hard. But it was like talking to a wall.
Cut number 9.
It's more obvious than ever that the productive and responsible nations of this region should not be enemies or adversaries. You should be partners and eventually even friends, and that's what's going to happen. I know it. Together you can stand against the forces of chaos. Yeah, you go ahead. That's an important point. Because you can stand against the forces of chaos that threaten all of your interests, and it's always a big threat, and unleash incredible prosperity and opportunity for all the people of these lands.
Cut number 10.
And the choice for Palestinians could not be more clear. This is their chance to turn forever from the path of terror and violence. It's been extreme, to exile the wicked forces of hate that are in their midst, and I think that's going to happen. I've met some people over the last couple of months that want to see it happen very much, and after tremendous pain and death and hardship, now is the time to concentrate on building their people up instead of trying to tear Israel down. We don't want that to happen.
He talked about what Israel can do. Cut number 12.
And with this week's ceasefire, we've achieved the most challenging breakthrough of them all, the most challenging breakthrough maybe ever. I mean, I've never seen anything like. I've been involved in a lot of success. I have never seen anything like what's going on today all over the world. People are dancing in the streets, not just in Israel. They're dancing in the streets of countries that would have never danced in the street about what's happening today. They're dancing in those streets. So this long and difficult war has now ended. You know, some people say 3,000 years, some people say 500 years, whatever it is. It's the granddaddy of them all. And in an unprecedented achievement, virtually the entire region has endorsed the plan that Gaza will be immediately demilitarized, that Hamas will be disarmed. And
Great thing. I'll come right back. One more segment. It was a fabulous speech at the Knesset today and in Egypt. President Trump leading the world and actually celebrating the return of the hostages. Before I play for you 2 more cuts of Donald Trump to cap off this amazing and wonderful day, I want to remind you, I thank Relief Factor every hour for sponsoring this show. I double-dosed it today because I have the mobility of an armoire that was built in 1850 out of wood that was nailed to the wall. I have very few pulled hamstrings in my life, but Relief Factor will kick in and it will do the job. If not tomorrow, then the day after. So I just doubled down on my dosage. Really do trust this. Helps the body anti-inflammatory system. Don't aggravate it. Heat, Relief Factor, leave it alone. I always tell you about that. I was world champion couch potato watching the Browns get embarrassed by the Steelers again yesterday. Doesn't help when you don't have any tackles, but that's life. The Titans fired their head coach today. He was 4-19. Don't fire Stefanski, Jimmy Haslam, D. Haslam. He's a good coach. Got to give him some offensive tackles. Relief Factor, 1-800, the number 4 in the word relief, 1-800-4RELIEF. $19.95 is a starter pack, 3-week supply. Or go to relieffactor.com. You can get the starter pack there, less than $1 a day, $19.95 for 3 weeks at relieffactor.com. President Trump, cut number 14.
From October 7th until this week, Israel has been a nation at war, enduring burdens that only a proud and faithful people could withstand. It was a very tough period of time. For so many families across this land, it has been years since you've known a single day of true peace. But now at last, not only for Israelis, but also for Palestinians and for many others, the long and painful nightmare is finally over. And as the dust settles, the smoke fades, the debris is removed, and the ashes cleaned from the air, the day that breaks on a region transformed, and a beautiful and much brighter future appears suddenly within your reach.
And then one more, cut number 15.
So as we celebrate today, let us remember how this nightmare of depravity and death all began. 2 years ago, on the eve of the Simchat Torah holiday, thousands of innocent Israeli civilians were attacked by terrorists, and one of the most evil and heinous desecrations of innocent life the world has ever seen, the worst slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust. The cruelty of October 7th struck to the core of humanity itself. Nobody could believe what they were witnessing. The United States of America grieved alongside you, and we mourned for our own citizens who were so viciously taken that day, and to all the families whose lives were forever changed by the atrocities of that day, and all of the people of Israel, please know that America joins you in those two everlasting vows: never forget and never again.
And we will not, and this audience will not forget. And I don't think it'll happen again, because Israel has shown the world that the partnership with the United States is completely strong, and the IDF is not to be trifled with. Thank you all. Joy to the survivors and comfort to those who did not.